Hello and welcome back to the channel. So we are still in the month of May 2023, where we are receiving adequate rainfall in this region where we are. And in this video of today, we are going to be discussing a crop which you can easily grow in your backyard for your vegetables. Remember, currently there is a push to incorporate vegetables and fruits in our diets, and for that reason you may want to grow some of the vegetables within your garden so that you don't have to overly rely on the ones which you buy from the market. And remember, when you grow some in your garden, it also comes with an advantage of helping you to grow them organically, so that you be sure that whatever you're eating has organically been grown without the much harsh chemicals which may be used in some of those ones which are healthy that are brought to the market. So in our discussion of today, we are going to be looking through the kales, whereby kales is a commonly consumed vegetable in our diet, either alone or in combination with other vegetables. So we're going to first look at the description of the kales, and then we shall look at the intricate details of how the growing goes. So the kales basically belong to the Brassicaceae family of plants, which has these broad leaves, as you can see here in the garden that we are covering for now, whereby these kales, when you grow them, they have a lot of nutritional benefits when you subsequently consume them in your diet. The first major benefit being that benefit of giving you fiber in your diet, and that fiber of course helps a lot in preventing what we call as constipation. And apart from helping to prevent constipation, that fiber is a very important component to aid in the general digestion of the food within our digestive system. So apart from providing the fiber, these kales also have other nutritional benefits, including having a high quantity of antioxidants. And as you know, antioxidants are those substances or chemicals which help to prevent the free radicals from having a free day within our digestive system, and thereafter causing us problems. So the antioxidants generally are meant to actually fight off the free radicals and therefore prevent the harmful effects of those free radicals. So apart from antioxidants, these kales also have other beneficial properties, like helping to lower blood pressure or to maintain blood pressure, and also other chemical substances which are capable of helping to prevent cancer development. And we know that the cancer development can also be attributed to the free radicals, which have discussed about when we were talking about the antioxidant capacities of these kales. So apart from that, kales also have the ability to help our body in preventing type 2 diabetes mellitus. And you know that type 2 diabetes mellitus is the type of diabetes which actually develops as a person continues with his life, in the sense it's not inherited. It comes at a later stage in our life. So in case you were to be having a risk factor for type 2 diabetes mellitus, then kales can also help in preventing that type 2 diabetes mellitus. Apart from that, these kales also have other very important benefits nutritionally, which we are going to see subsequently. They contain quite a number of vitamins and minerals, And in the context of vitamins, they have a lot of vitamin C and vitamin K, and we know that vitamins generally play a very important role in the general well-being or the overall well-being of our body. So in the context of the mineral content of these kales, I'm going to describe to you how beneficial they are. There is a certain website they call as Medical News Today, whose link is medicalnewstoday.com, as I'm going to share it in the description section. In that article from Medical News Today, it highlights that a cup of cooked kale has the capacity to provide about 5 times an adult person's daily need for vitamin K, and also that can provide about 15 to 18% of their daily need for calcium, and also about 7% of their daily need for phosphorus. So that indicates to you that these our kales actually have a high value when you consume it in their diet. Apart from just serving as a vegetable, it has that capacity to give you all those other vitamin and mineral components that we have seen just briefly in our discussion. So these kales, to grow them successfully and to maintain healthy plants, you will need well draining loamy soils, of which these well draining loamy soils need to be highly enriched with organic matter. That organic matter usually comes in the form of either organic matter from the other vegetations which are slashed around the compound to serve as the mulch. As you can see, the mulch which I've applied around this my garden here, or you can use manures, organic manures, as a source of that organic matter within your garden where you're going to plant the kales. So in the context of the manures, it is highly recommended that you use high nitrogen containing manures, right? High nitrogen containing manures, especially you can use chicken manure or even cow dung. But when you're going to use those high nitrogen containing manures, then ensure that they are actually dry, right? Ensure that they are actually dry before you apply them in your garden, and that helps to minimize the risk that the nitrogen or the high nitrogen manure, especially with the chicken manure, does not actually scourge your plants, because of the fact that sometimes that chicken manure has the tendency to accumulate a lot of heat within the soil when it's applied, when it's still not dry. So it's usually recommended that you actually apply very dry chicken manure or even cow dung as an organic manure in your garden before you do the planting. Now, these plants, when you are raising them in your garden, it is highly recommended that you maintain adequate spacing between the plants. And you know the benefits of adequate spacing in your garden for the plants. Adequate spacing ensures that the plants are not going to put shade on each other and therefore prevent optimal growth when they are supposed to be largely growing within your garden. So the optimal space that you can maintain at minimum should be 2 feet between the rows and 2 feet between the plants, in the sense from one plant to another plant 2 feet, and then from one row to another row 2 feet. I'll give you an important illustration why 2 feet shall be the minimum requirement there. If you look at this plant, look at this leaf and look at this leaf. This leaf is originating from here this leaf is originating from this other plant here. So if you maintain a very short distance between the two, then it means that they may end up being too close together and therefore providing a shade for each other. That shade is not required because these kales actually love sunshine, in the sense they thrive very well in an area where they're receiving maximum amounts of sunshine. So for that reason, it's important that you actually maintain a minimum spacing between the rows and between the plants of 2 feet wide. Another important reason as to why we should maintain an adequate spacing between them is for the fact that nutrient absorption from the soil is of course done by the roots of the plants, and that implies that if you put the plants too close together, then they will of course be competing so much with each other for the nutrients in the soil, and that will give them no room for optimally utilizing the nutrients from the soil as independent plants. For that reason, it's essential that you space the plants adequately such that they maintain that optimal growth after absorbing the nutrients from the soil. Then one important feature that you have observed from this garden here is that apart from maintaining the distance of about 2 feet between the plants and 2 feet within the rows as a minimum, it has also been a practice to also apply some mulch between the rows of the plants. So between this plant and this other plant, you can see that there is a row in between. That row has actually been given some mulch, or some mulch has been applied in that area. That mulch, when it decomposes, of course, it helps to contribute to the soil fertility with organic matter, so that the plants continue enjoying the nutrients from the soil within the time frame of their growth, so that your plants can grow very healthily. Now, how long does it take for you to start harvesting your kale plants? Usually between 2 months to 3 months, you should be able to pick the first leaves of your kales. For instance, these kales which you are seeing here were planted in the middle of the month of March, and by now, which is not yet the middle of the month of May, you can see that the leaves are already quite big for most of the plants, and they are ready actually for picking to be used in the vegetables. Though they are ready, I have the tendency of leaving them to grow for a little bit longer, so that they establish themselves very, very healthily before I can actually start harvesting them for use as a vegetable in my diet. But then just within 2 months to 3 months, as a rule, you can be able to start picking some of the leaves from your plants for consumption in your diet. Sometimes this period of time can easily be affected by rain and drought, in the sense when there is no rain, in the sense during the period of drought, the growth of the plants usually takes a little bit longer because of the fact that they struggle to grow due to that inadequacy of water. And during that time, then it automatically implies that you will have to wait for a longer period of time before you can actually harvest your kales. So after harvesting the leaves, how are you going to now prepare them in your meal? Usually, majority of the people, they usually use these kales as a regular vegetable, cooking them separately with frying them separately with the onions and tomatoes and other spices. But some people may prefer to actually mix them with other vegetables, and in other cases, some people may prefer to mix them with meat of various types, maybe with chicken meat, or with beef or mutton, or any other meat that they may be interested in. So that's the most common method of consumption of this plant, either by mixing them with other vegetables or meats, or consuming them as fried vegetables separately. Then when you are growing the plants, remember to maintain and continue conditioning the soil with more organic matter as the plant grows, and this especially through continuous application of mulch. So for example, right now as the plants are, I'm supposed to start applying more mulch onto the garden, because the mulch which I had applied earlier between the rows has actually reduced in volume, in the sense they have started to decompose well. So I need to start applying another layer of mulch so that I continue maintaining the soil fertility. Apart from maintaining the mulch application, you can also continue applying manure, especially dry cow dung manure, so that it continues nourishing your soil. It's not very advisable to continue applying chicken manure when the plants are already growing, especially when they are still short like this, because of the fact that the chicken manure has that tendency of disintegrating during rainy seasons and then splashing so much onto your plants, and that can potentially maybe cause you an undesirable taste on the plants if you don't clean them very well when you are actually going to prepare them. So having looked at those details about how to grow your kales in your backyard, in a small space in your backyard, then let's look through some of the diseases which have the capacity to actually affect these our kales. We have quite a number of them, including alternaria, leaf spot, then we also have downy mildew, then we have anthracnose, and then sclerotinia, stem rot. All these have the capacity to affect your plants. So that implies that as you are continue with your consumption of your plants after they've grown well, then you need to also be monitoring your plants if they have been affected by the diseases. For example, on this leaf here, you can see that it has been affected by some sort of disease there. Of course, that disease is usually caused by a specific agent. So that implies that if you know the treatment for that agent, then you can quickly grab the treatment and apply onto that plant so that it doesn't fully become infested by that disease. Then this other leaf here, you can see it is almost like looking like it's almost rotting also, starting from the edges. So if you know the causative agent for that disease, also grab the treatment for it and apply it to your plant so that you don't end up losing the whole plant. On the other hand, there are times when your plant can also be infested by some insects which have the tendency of chewing the leaf. Before I move to the insects, I think let me show you another leaf here which has been affected also by a certain disease. You can see that leaf there. It's almost black on the stalk. That implies that that leaf or the plant is generally affected by a certain disease, and that will imply that you may need to apply the treatment for that disease before the whole plant is lost. So we have some insects and pests which usually affect these kales. Most of them, they have the tendency of chewing the leaves either from the edges or sometimes even from the middle. You can see that leaf there. It has been torn very well. I don't know why, by that insect. You can see a very big hole has been perforated on that leaf, and that is due to the chewing habits of those insects which tend to affect our plants. Several other leaves you may find that they have been chewed. For example, this one's here. You can see the holes which have been perforated on those leaves is due to the chewing by those small pests and insects which affect the plants. But of course, those ones, it may not be easy to apply a treatment for them. Usually, if you are preferring organically grown vegetables, because of the fact that that treatment usually comes in the form of a chemical treatment, and some people may not prefer any such chemical treatment on their vegetables. So it depends on how you're going to treat them. You may use organic means, but most people may use chemical treatment as a first fix for that problem of the pests and insects which end up chewing the leaves of the kale plants. So basically that is how people grow the kale plants for their consumption from their backyard gardens, and it doesn't require a lot of space. I'm going to move back a little bit so that you see how much space this small garden here is occupying, right? So one row is just taking about 7 plants. Let me see one row, let me count manually. There's 1 plant there. Let me count using that row, this row here. 1 2 3 4 5 6 and 7. So one row is taking about 7 plants, meaning that from a small space like this one, if you have about 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 rows, 8 rows times 7, then it means you have about 56 plants of kales, which you can then be using regularly in your diet. That implies that you may not be willing to buy some of these vegetables from the market, since you'll already be having much of it in your garden, so that you don't actually spend some money in the market on vegetables like kales. You will only be spending on the items which you have not grown within your garden. So sometimes you may prefer to also grow a few other plants within your garden where you've planted the kales. For example, here you can see some chilies here. And quite a number of them have overripened, and even they are rotting. Reason being, for some time I was away from this place and from the garden, not from my house per se, but from the garden. So when I came back to the garden, I found some of the fruits have actually overripened, and some of them have even fallen to the ground. So those ones which have overripened and they have started rotting, there is no problem, due to the fact that as a good farmer, I'm just going to use those as sources of seeds for use in the planting of this same chili in another round of their growing. So that is how basically you grow your own kales in your backyard for use in your diet for your vegetables. So thank you. We wish to continue with another video another time.